So one of the things that we struggled with was when to hire managers. Like, when do you bring in managers? How do you hire managers? Like, when do you create management in the company? When you're the first person, you're obviously the person doing things and the manager. You might have other partners that are also kind of managers. And potentially, depending on the situation, you might not have another manager for a little while. Obviously, at some point, you have to, if you want to keep growing to a certain size, you have to hire other managers or promote people to be managers. So some of the things that we look for is, well, one, how big is the team? So for instance, if you have one person doing one task and that's it, you might not need a manager for that yet, just because it's just a certain task. But if a team gets to a certain size, let's say it's like you have 5 or 6 designers, you're probably going to get to a point where someone needs to manage those designers. I think usually it's around like the 5 to 7 person size, where it's pretty much impossible to manage effectively more than, let's say, 10 people. So usually I'd say like 5 to 7 people, you want to start looking at having someone managing those people in that department. The other thing to look for is actually the department itself. Like, it might make sense to hire a manager when you're building a new department, even if there's no one for them to manage yet. That was something that we also learned, is that sometimes the department wouldn't be successful because we would have people that weren't really managers in that department, and then there was no one leading that department. So it's kind of the chicken or the egg scenario, where the department wouldn't do well until you had the manager. So in some scenarios, you may actually want to hire a manager before there's a bunch of people to manage to grow that division. And that might come into play when you're like really aggressively trying to grow that division, or you think it's a really key division to the company and you see it as something that's going to become something bigger, and maybe that person has sales ability so they can help sell that product or service or grow that division that way. So there are times where you don't necessarily need to have a big team to justify hiring a manager in that department. And that also comes into play when you don't have the skill set. Like, maybe no one's good at that thing. You might want to hire a manager for that because you want someone senior in that position, because if you sell it or you do something and you need someone in that space and they're not senior management level, it might go very poorly. The other thing to think about is like interdepartment managers. This kind of ties into the 5 to 7 people. So one of the challenges we ran into was like, we'd had a manager, but then all of a sudden their team had like 20 people. So then you have to start elevating people underneath them. And so it's, you have managers within the managers, and you kind of create this hierarchy. So I think it's important to follow that, like, maybe call it 5 to 10 person rule. I like to say 5 to 7 person rule, where as the department grows, you might have different managers within the departments. And then once you have a bunch of managers, the big challenge that you're going to face is actually having them all communicate and having interdepartment communication across all the managers. So that's some of the experiences that we've had. I think everyone's going to have different experiences, but definitely comment if you have any advice on this.